Welcome to the MMM Tech Law and Business Report. My name is Joe Berkland. I'm an attorney with the Morris Manning Martin Corporate Technology Group based in Atlanta. And today I have Jim Barnish with Orchid Black. Hey, Jim, how's it going?
Going well, Joe. How you doing?
So, Jim, thanks for being here today. Really appreciate it. Going to dive right in. Give us a quick overview of Orchid Black, what you guys do, and how you can add value to tech companies.
Yeah, absolutely. So Orchid Black is a new kind of growth services firm. We partner with SaaS, software, and really tech-forward companies to build smarter, better, game-changing businesses. And as part of that, we are really relentlessly focused on ensuring that our clients hit bigger milestones and see greater returns faster. A lot of our clients say we've cracked the code on growth. And as part of that, whereas unicorns are mythical, black orchids are real and just as exotic and rare, so too are the select client partners that we work with, rare, choice, exotic. And when you work with Orchid Black, you work with us, whether your goal is exit or like an orchid to live and grow for over 100 years, our mission is to uplift tech-forward companies, amplifying their value in the marketplace and in the world.
That's great. That's great. So tell us about your background and how you started Orchid Black.
Yeah, so my background is a bit different than most, getting thrown into my family business at the ripe young age of 15. My job back then was to find, acquire, and integrate companies into our existing business. So from a 15-year-old intern to 19-year-old leader, I went, and nearly 8 years, 30 acquisitions later, and a lot of lessons learned along the way, saw us grow from about 40 million to 600 million in revenue through the combination of M&A and organic growth. I took a lot of those lessons learned and successes, of course, combined with a hunger that I had for technology and digital coming out of my MBA, and chose to turn my efforts towards helping to grow other tech-forward companies. At TriBridge, I was really fortunate to work with some incredible leaders locally here in Tampa, gaining real exposure to a very culture-first leadership technology team that was relentlessly focused on vision, strategy, and overall growth, and saw that eventually lead to a 9-figure exit to DXC Technologies. And so from there, my passion really grew from pure growth to growth plus exit focused. And after an ever so brief stint at McKinsey, I spent the next few years working in a COO or chief of staff executive level capacity at several software SaaS companies with my former boss, who I had worked with at TriBridge, Stephen Horowitz. And if you now fast forward a few exits and a plethora of growth later to today, Steve and I are really in year 3 of pretty wild ride serving growth stage companies at Orchid Black, formerly known as Morgan Hill Partners to some.
And tell us a little bit about that name change. What was the thought process behind that, and what was the purpose of the rebrand?
Yeah, so, coming into what the world saw in COVID back in March, and still is seeing in many ways, we really needed to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And we knew that all new business activity and fundraising was in the process of freezing up. We knew that for sales and fundraising processes, we really needed to stop negotiating and close, or it would be a long time to get back in the door. And really in the never-ending battle between fear and greed, fear began to gain the upper hand in the world. And so we tried to act accordingly and immediately focused on the downside risk. Part of that was that we were serving a large plethora of clientele. Part of that was our brand was very formal, was very focused on financial sponsors, and not as focused on the innovative and visionary founders that we serve. And so, we knew that because opportunities do always emerge in uncertain and tumultuous times, and that our team was more online, remote, creative, and nimble than our competition, we took advantage, and we underwent a strategic rebrand to be even more focused on our ideal client profile, or our ICP, and better positioned to win when really everything blows over, because we knew it would eventually. And history has shown that some of the best, most resilient companies and ultimately the most impactful companies were born out of crises. And so we really made that our goal. And it was especially important to us because our business model, where risk and upside is really important to manage, we really needed to refocus on selecting only the choicest clients as part of that. And kind of fast forward to today's growth and tomorrow's goals, if you will, we're actually having our best year yet. and are really more relentless than ever on providing that top quality for clients. We've grown the team significantly, and we're really excited to accelerate a more aggressive sales and marketing push heading into 2021.
That's great. That's great. So what makes Orchid Black unique or different from other players in the industry? Are you sort of in your own space, or is it something where you're competing with a lot of other players? Is it a busy space? And what makes you guys different?
So, really over the years, I kind of learned that a healthy business is super complex, and smart strategy and roadmaps alone aren't really enough to help companies hit their targets and achieve velocity. So, a big part about what separates us is our human capital, not just our IP. And so that's really for this reason that Orchid Black picks up where many management consultants leave off, and why we consider ourselves a growth services firm versus a management consulting firm. We'll be there through strategy and roadmaps, but we'll also be very hands-on to help you execute. And at the end of the day, in addition to data-powered assessments and blueprints that we have, we deploy our operators to roll up their sleeves, dig in deep, and execute on recommendations, working side by side with our partners. And just as part of that too, our business model is very unique, which mitigates financial and operational risk to build a real foundation of trust, co-accountability, and mutually beneficial outcomes. And so we'll put a large percentage of our fees at risk to align incentives of our team and the clients that we serve.
So that's great. And I think that, just particularly in these times, having that trust is ever so important. So, for you to help guide companies through this with your deep bench of talent is great for the ecosystem. So what's next for Orchid Black? Do you have any new products or features coming out? Any new sort of initiatives, strategies?
Yeah. So as part of our strategic rebrand, we also rolled out some proprietary IP that's been in the greenhouse, if you will, for quite some time. We call it our value creation assessment, or VCA. And it's our entry point for nearly all of our engagements, as it accelerates our ability to crack the code, if you will, on value creation and growth for a company. In a matter of only a few weeks, using the combination of our platform and team, we're able to determine any gaps and risk in the business and any potential value creation opportunities within the business and the market as well, leading to a set of recommendations by our team, which then drives our true growth strategy and execution engagements coming out of that. But moreover, what's really important is as we move from assessment to strategy and execution, we're able to gain an intimate understanding of the impact that our team will have on a company if they bring us on as a strategic partner to help implement the recommendations. So it really screams ROI.
So basically a way to track that return on engaging you guys is the tool that you're offering. That's really unique.
Absolutely.
So any growth plans specific to COVID? How you mentioned it earlier in the interview, and it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on where you're headed during COVID and some steps you've taken so far and ways that you've adjusted, and also just your general thoughts on how the ecosystem, the tech ecosystem, is adjusting throughout COVID.
Yeah, so loaded question, but I love it. So, at the end of the day, resiliency is kind of the keyword that I just continue to use. We are in uncertain times. In uncertain times, resiliency is what really powers through. And as I mentioned earlier, some of the most resilient and high growth companies have come out of financial crises. And that's incredible to think about, or crises, not just financial crises, financial or economic crisis or social crises. And so it's really kind of where my focus is on managing for that risk, but also thinking forward, given that we are having our best year ever and that we do want to serve as many growth stage companies as possible. We're really, really focused on finding the clients that we believe we can help the most and doubling down on them from a risk perspective. Now, that being said, as it relates to the ecosystem, there's an overwhelming amount of people and companies that have very little runway, or it had very little runway going into COVID. And so we're seeing a lot of investors doubling down on their existing investments. We're seeing a lot of founders, really worrying a lot more about cash on the balance sheet than they were before, which may not be the worst thing. But at the end of the day, it's something that is hurting a lot of companies, the way that they had been managing financial and operational execution in the past. And so, as we start to think about growth, as we start to think about planning for the future, it's really important and noticeable that companies are finally seemingly shifting towards a new level of responsibility of owning their financial and operational standards, a new level of responsibility of managing their balance sheet in a much more meaningful way.
That's great, Jim. Really appreciate your insights on the ecosystem. And it is a difficult time, and you see companies navigating it in all sorts of different ways. But it's great to hear your viewpoint, given that you work with so many tech companies in the Southeast at the consulting and business level. That's all that we have today for the MMM Tech Law and Business Report. Jim, thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate having you on. And
thank you, Joe.
Looking forward to seeing great things that come from Orchid Black.
Awesome. Take care.